Manx Radio's Update with Lewis Foster.
Fast Mai, welcome along to Update. It's 5 o'clock on Wednesday, the 24th of July 2024, and time for your daily roundup of news on and from the Isle of Man. Over the next half hour, we'll bring you a look at the big issues of the day, including the latest with assisted dying legislation as the MHK behind it sets out a timeline. There are major concerns over postal deliveries on the island. What should farmers do about fallen stock? And the organisers of the Chris Kelly Memorial Rally event say its cancellation is a huge loss. We'll also keep you posted on anything to watch out for travel-wise. And as ever, your thoughts welcome 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. But first, the Man-Badam News headlines. Faster Mai, Chanel Suku.
Faster Mai. The steam packet has confirmed Manannan responded to an urgent call for help this afternoon as she was on her way back from Dublin. Manx Radio understands the alarm from another vessel was raised near the Santon coastline just after 1 p.m. The fast craft was then stood down as soon as the RNLI was on scene. Footpath maintenance across the Isle of Man has been more difficult this year due to the weather. The Department of Infrastructure says days with rain and bright sunshine have been a major challenge as they provide ideal conditions for the growth of vegetation. And a memorial service to mark the 51st anniversary of the Summerland tragedy will take place on the 2nd of August. It's been organised by Douglas Council to remember those who died in the 1973 fire. In international news, a man's been arrested on suspicion of causing the death of 6 people, including 2 children, in a car crash in West Yorkshire. Police say they're searching for a grey Porsche 911 that was seen near the scene on Saturday. Eluned Morgan's been confirmed as the new Welsh Labour leader. She'll become the first woman to be Wales' First Minister. And Monday was apparently the hottest day ever on Earth. Data from the Climate Change Service shows the global average temperature was 17 degrees Celsius, beating the record from the day before. Those are your headlines. News at 6.
Grow my edge, Chanel. Thank you. Now, the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. Damp and dull in most places this evening, maybe no surprise, with patchy drizzle possible and mist and fog on the high ground and around some coasts. Fresh southerly winds, then overnight the winds will swing to the southwest and ease as any drizzle dies out. Minimum temperature tonight 14 Celsius. Tomorrow will then be a largely dry day with only isolated showers, and after a cloudy start, sunny intervals will develop later on. Moderate southwest winds, the top temperature 19 Celsius. Sunshine and only isolated showers on Friday and very similar over the weekend. That's more like it. And sunset tonight at 9:30, sunrise tomorrow morning at 5:20.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
Many people are struggling. You could help them with a donation to Isle of Man Food Bank. Whether food or other essential items or financial support, please call 646 999. Brought to you by Descon Office Interiors.
Relax at Wicked Soy Candles overlooking Douglas Bay. Our candle and wax melt courses includes refreshments from £40 per person, and you can bring your own drinkies. Wicked Soy Candles, Tower House Douglas, where relaxation and creativity come together.
For a wide range of wood-burning stoves and a complete installation service, visit The Snug in Ramsey. And we don't stop there. Kiln-dried firewood and full aftercare service, including chimney sweeps and maintenance. Call The Snug in Ramsey.
Your business can grow its market share 4 times faster. Be heard by over 43,000 island adults over 13 weeks. Call us on 682 600. Manx Radio is proud to support Manx businesses and communities.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
And we're coming up to 5:05. There's a very good chance the assisted dying legislation won't come into force during this administration, according to the politician who proposed it. 2/3 of MHK supported the bill at its third reading in the House of Keys. It will now ascend to the Legislative Council when the summer recess ends in October. But Ramsey MHK, Dr. Alex Allenson, says it's right that the legislation isn't rushed.
There's a very good chance that a service to provide for assisted dying won't come in during this administration. We need to take the time to get on board those people who are going to provide the service, to make sure they have the right support, to make sure that those people who might be thinking of assisted dying have the right support and information. But key to this, and I can't stress this more, the fact that we're talking about death, the fact that we're talking about what people want, and also what we're talking about is openness, that open conversation when people are given a terminal diagnosis, I think is incredibly important whenever this bill comes through, that people feel that they have the space, the chance, and the opportunity to talk about what they want and what their wishes are. I think that's really, really important for our island and our island's people.
We have heard recently as well from Ms Edge that the idea of a public referendum is something she would still very much be in support of. We saw that voted against a few weeks ago. Do you think that is something that could come back into the fore?
Obviously, the Legislative Council can come up with all sorts of different recommendations, and I very much respect the scrutiny and the attention they'll give to this bill. We actually, I think, spent an entire day talking about referendums, which we haven't held on the Isle of Man. We do have an act, but it's 1979. It's completely out of date. It needs rewriting if we are to have referendums. As I said, we have a representative democracy. It would be very odd to have a referendum put in at the end of a bill. I'd much rather referendums be started to determine the policy for a bill to come forward. But certainly I think this will be probably an election issue in 2026. With the implementation period, it's unlikely to be in action by then. And I think there will be people who, stand in 2026 who are against this and those who are for it. And I think it's absolutely right that they represent the opinions and the thoughts of the people who put them there. But also it's absolutely right that we communicate properly and people are aware that what we're trying to do is provide that choice and autonomy for a very small number of people who are facing a terminal illness, who are expected to die within 12 months and who have a settled intention and have the right capacity to make these decisions. And that choice and autonomy given to those people, I think, is absolutely key for us moving forward as a nation.
Ramsey MHK, Dr. Alex Allenson there. Now, allowing farmers to bury fallen stock on their land could pose a significant risk to the farming industry, according to the minister responsible for the agriculture sector. Farmers recently hit out after price hikes were brought in for disposing of livestock that have died from reason other than slaughter. At this week's sitting of the House of Keys, Claire Barber was asked whether her department was considering allowing a change of policy.
The burial of fallen stock on the Isle of Man is generally governed by the Animal Byproducts Regulations 2019. The Animal Byproducts Regulations 2019 were put in place to safeguard animal and human health and to enable the farming industry to trade in animals and animal products within the UK and EU. It places legal requirements on farmers to dispose of any livestock that die on farm to be disposed of by an approved route. This is due to the classification as a Category 1 animal byproduct. Any changes to the legislation may compromise our ability to trade in animals and animal products, which would pose a significant risk to our farming industry, and this is something that must be considered carefully, noting of course that the ability to trade is also a key strand of the food security for the island. Burying fallen stock on farm can pose a risk to animal health from diseases, including foot and mouth disease and bovine tuberculosis, to name just a couple. These risks extend also to human health, therefore full and careful consideration must be given to any changes. In line with the legal requirements to both protect animal and human health and to allow us to trade with the UK and the EU, my department undertakes transmissible spongiform encephalopathy, otherwise known as TSE sampling, of adult sheep and cattle that die for reasons other than slaughter and are aged over 48 months old. I am aware that there are some very remote areas of the EU that have a derogation to allow some on-farm burial of fallen stock. The requirements of the UK Isle of Man EU legislation do not allow for the Isle of Man to derogate on farm burial except under exceptional circumstances. Nonetheless, this is an area we're starting to review to ensure that our regulatory framework as it relates to fallen stock on the island is as resilient as possible and is taking into account any other practices and regimes that might exist in other jurisdictions.
Given the overriding significance of trade and the limits that's placing on the Minister's ability, does she recognise that's just adding to the frustration in terms of what farmers are feeling, given the recent price increases to actually have these animals removed? And given that situation, is there any possible solution that she can envisage, because there is real frustration being felt at the moment.
Thank you, and I think that's covering a number of different strands. I think, as the Honourable Member will know, we are working with colleagues on recently announced price increases, but in specific relation to the question, as I say, we would have to approach with caution any decision relating to burial of fallen stock, but I would say that there are also other options that we're exploring as a department.
Environment, Food and Agriculture Minister Claire Barber there. The time now 5:10. More than 900 people on the Isle of Man are currently on a waiting list for public sector housing. The figures have been released as part of a Freedom of Information request which was submitted earlier this month. Tessa Hawley reports.
As of April this year, there were 735 individuals seeking to rent a government or local authority-owned property. An additional 201 people were waiting for sheltered accommodation. The figures show that the majority of people are waiting for property in Douglas at 232, which is followed by 141 who've applied for any Department of Infrastructure property across the island. The housing provider with the lowest number of people waiting is Braddon Parish Commissioners, which has 17 on its list. Ramsey and Northern District Housing Committee has the most people waiting for sheltered housing, with 58 applicants, whilst Garth Commissioners has the fewest at 14. In Tynwald last month, the number of empty or void properties across the public sector housing stock was revealed. Figures up to the end of March show there were 165. The Department of Infrastructure said the statistics, which date between 2021 and 2024, show a significant increase in the number of void properties. However, it says this can be attributed to the impact that major capital projects have had, where properties either needed redevelopment or demolition. These, the DOI says, have had a direct impact on the number of void properties at School Hill in Castletown and Corner Marry in Ramsey. The Westlands redevelopment in Peel between 2022 and 2024, which has now concluded, means void levels for Peel and the West have returned to normal levels. And you can find all those statistics and more at manxradio.com.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
5:12, and MHK has told Manx Radio he has major concerns about what's happening with postal deliveries on the Isle of Man. Arbury Castletown and Malo's Jason Morehouse tackled the issue in the House of Keys this week. He was told by Chair Stu Peters that each delivery route is prioritised equally and the number of complaints had been low, but it appears he wasn't entirely happy with that response.
I was very surprised. I'd heard that there were issues in terms of the union trying to get a meeting with Mr Peters, and there was a suggestion that 6 emails had been sent out, but I just thought it was worth asking what relationship there is, and he was very clear that his relationship with the Post Office is with the board.
But he emphasised he was chairman of the board, it was to the board he reported. What would he gain by being on the shop floor?
Well, there seem to be major issues at the Post Office at the moment, and if he's only hearing things from the board, then there are serious concerns. I've been invited to go and look around the Post Office, and hopefully Mr Peters will be able to come with me on that visit to actually see what's going on outside the boardroom.
So will you go down on the shop floor and talk to people?
I presume so, because it's quite a long meeting, quite a long visit.
So you're saying that what's the opinion from the shop floor is the most important?
Gosh, of course it is, yeah. Because that's where things come from. That's how the post is delivered. That's all the basic running of the company. So that is important.
But generally, you are unhappy with the delivery rates?
There seem to be major concerns, and that information doesn't appear to be getting to the board. As we clearly heard this morning from the chairman, that he's not got any realistic concerns, whereas people who I'm speaking to actually working and delivering have got major concerns.
Arbury Castletown and Maloo MHK, Jason Morehouse, speaking to Manx Radio's John Moss there. Taking a look at today's business news, FC Isle of Man has confirmed advisory firm FRP as its new home shirt sponsor. Company directors Gordon Wilson and Kathleen McGee unveiled the new strip alongside FC Isle of Man chair Joel Christian, club vice chair Lee Dixon and several members of the playing squad this week. The new kit will be used for the first time by the Ravens this weekend when they face Chatterton in their opening game of the 2024-25 NWCFL Premier Division at the Bowl in in Douglas this Saturday. Speaking on the deal, Mr Wilson says the organisation is a big fan of what the club is trying to achieve, and the sponsorship is an outstanding way to promote the firm and support the team. Now for the latest stock market report from Ramsey Crookall. The dollar fell to its lowest in more than 2 months against the yen on Wednesday as short yen carry trades were unwound ahead of next week's Bank of Japan meeting, with investors girding for a hawkish move to begin removing monetary stimulus. US crude oil futures rebounded more than a percentage point on Wednesday, breaking a 3-day losing streak as stockpiles fell, gasoline demand rose, and wildfires in Canada raised the risk of supply disruptions. At the close, the FTSE 100 down 0.21% to 8,150. The DAX down 1.03% to 18,367. And a short time ago, the Dow Jones was down 0.99% to 39,962. The S&P 500 down 1.71% to 5,460. And the Nasdaq down 2.63% to 17,522. Gold up 0.69% to $2,425, and a barrel of Brent up 0.53% to $81.97. British pound sterling trading at 1.29626 US dollars and 1.1904 euros.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsey Crookall later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m, is it?
2:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsey Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
Forgot to put my shoes on.
Oh.
See how we can make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Taking a look at the roads first, Annika Road is closed between Bearcam and Close Kennish for resurfacing. That's in Douglas. In Laxey, temporary lights on Pinfold Hill for work on the pavement. In Laxey as well, temporary lights on Ramsey Road at the Menorca Hill junction for drainage installation. And until the 5th of August, the Ballarig Road is closed near the Menorca Hill crossroads for construction of a new service access cover. Up in Ramsey, temporary lights on May Hill, 24 hours a day for patching work there. And in Peel until the 29th of July, Factory Lane is closed for emergency electrical work. In Foxdale, temporary lights on the main road through the village near the Mines Road turn, 24 hours a day for property repairs. In Castletown, temporary lights on Arbury Road, 24 hours a day. And the Super Manx Summer Series cycling event is on this evening in the Derby area, which means there'll be restrictions on the Coast Road, Ballavaran Road and Ballamona Road between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. tonight. Over at the airport, despite the relatively foggy conditions, no problems to report looking at this evening's departure board. And the sailings, the Manannan, as we heard, responded to an SOS call from another vessel on her way back from Dublin earlier today, but she got away to Liverpool on time, arriving there in around half an hour's time. Meanwhile, if it wasn't so misty, you might see the Manxman on the horizon as she's due back from Heysham at 10 to 6.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre with 1 year's free engine warranty from Castrol. Get more with
Quayside. Approaching 19 minutes past 5 now, Manx Care says it will be proactively exploring the possibility of using online ADHD assessment tests on the island. It's something being looked at by NHS England, as Amy Griffiths reports.
The QB test tracks the movement of patients while measuring the three main symptoms of ADHD: inattention, impulsivity and hyperactivity. Results are then compared with patients of the same age who don't have the condition. Evidence from trials suggests the test could increase the number of young patients being diagnosed or having the condition ruled out within 6 months. At the moment, those suspected of having ADHD have the condition diagnosed or ruled out following a detailed assessment, which can include interviews with the child, their parents or teachers, and a physical examination to rule out other possible causes for the symptoms. In draft guidance, the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, or NICE, has recommended QB tests be used by the NHS to aid the diagnosis of patients aged 6 to 17 alongside standard clinical assessment. Currently on the Isle of Man, there are around 1,200 children on the waiting list to see CAMHS, with the overwhelming majority waiting for an autism or ADHD assessment. Ross Bailey is the head of Integrated Mental Health Services and has confirmed to Manx Radio that the healthcare provider will be proactively exploring the viability of the QB test.
Amy Griffiths, thank you. The Isle of Man Food Bank is gearing up to see new families and individuals requesting help during the summer break. The charity CEO, Neil Mellon, says currently they're providing 350 households with food parcels. He told Manx Radio everybody on the island is being impacted by the cost of living.
We've always seen families struggle in the summer. We always endeavour to alleviate that. I think what we'll be seeing is more children having that problem, more parents trying to cope. There's many issues for this, though, Chanel. It's not just about the schools closed and so there's no free school dinners. The people that we're seeing and people coming in who are struggling now are people who have problems in paying for their utility bills. There's people coming in because they have problems in maintaining payments on their mortgages or for their rent. But we also see other issues. We see phone poverty, which might seem very, very strange, but people have to budget and they'll have a set amount going onto their mobile phones. And if they're put on hold, that becomes a problem because they will run out of their credit. That becomes a major problem when the children are at school during the year, if the schools are trying to contact them or health centres are ringing back. So there's a whole raft of problems that adds to the overall pressure that parents have in feeding children.
Neil Mellon from the Isle of Man Food Bank there. The time now 22 minutes past 5. The public inquiry into the draft North and West Area Plan has moved west for the final week of discussion. Housing was the agenda topic for the day, including densities on zoned land in Peel, affordability and site yields. Our local democracy reporter Emma Draper was at the inquiry and she joins me in the studio now. Emma, what were some of the key points made at the inquiry?
Well, Peel Commissioners has been strongly against housing densities listed in the draft plan and put their questions to the Cabinet Office representatives about why there was so much land zoned. The Cabinet Office explained that they'd used different methods from the original plan to this new plan, which is why there had been such an increase in the amount of houses Peel residents could have seen. However, I've received an update that the Cabinet Office have made a proposal to the Chair of the Inquiry, Brian Sims, to remove the housing density levels from the draft plan altogether. Obviously, we won't know whether he will agree to this until his inquiry report is complete.
Again, we have heard about the need for affordable housing on the island, so tell us how that was factored into this draft plan.
So it has been included, but there are no policies to set prices. Instead, Mr Sims said it's about where the land and houses can be allocated and administered. That could be either Commissioners or Department of Infrastructure Housing. It was queried where lower prices could be fit into the draft and whether young people leaving and older people wanting to downsize had been factored in, and it was confirmed it had.
And some of the smaller villages have been included in the plan.
Yes, they have. Glen Mona has been allocated a field for housing, which Garth Commissioner for Mackald Ward, Marinda Farragher, hopes will actually encourage people to move there. She spoke at the inquiry about how school numbers at the Dune had dwindled and would like to see some affordable housing built. Ms Farragher also said there are plans for a community centre to be developed from the old church.
Local democracy reporter Emma Draper, thank you. And that inquiry continues until Friday this week. Now, organisers of a now cancelled island rallying event claim around £750,000 in visitors' spend could have been generated had it gone ahead in September. That's according to Enterprise Minister Tim Johnston, who was questioned in the House of Keys this week about the documentation issues which have led to the Chris Kelly Memorial Stages event being axed.
Parliament officers met with the rally organisers a number of times both during the lead up to their Manx National Rally event, which took place in May 2024, and also about the rally that they had proposed for September. Whilst no assessment has been undertaken on the proposed September event, the department did undertake a high-level economic impact analysis of the May 24 Manx National Rally. Based on the organisers' reported visitor numbers, it was estimated to account for approximately £750,000 worth of total visitor spend. The rally organisers indicated they expected similar outcomes for the proposed September event. When officers became aware of the likely rejection of the road closure application due to insufficient documentation, a meeting with the rally organisers was organised with my department political colleague, Mrs Maltby, MHK. I think more than one meeting, actually about 3 altogether, who was delegated responsibility for tourism and motorsport in late May 2024. Following these meetings, the department made representations to the DOI to better understand their position and explore if there was opportunity for the rally organisers to appeal and provide further information to support a successful outcome. In communications with the DOI, the department noted that whilst it was seeking to listen to and support the rally organisers, it was recognised that safety was a matter of critical importance, with a requirement for relevant safety critical documentation and plans to be provided. The department was clear with the proposed organisers that the relevant documentation must be completed to a sufficient standard and to the deadlines agreed. Ultimately, it is understood that a successful resolution could not be achieved, and the rally organisers subsequently publicly announced that the September event would not go ahead. Whilst obviously disappointing, I do fully understand and support the decision and look forward to a successful May 2025 event.
You can find a statement from Manx Autosport at manxradio.com. 26 minutes past 5 now. And sports editor Rob Pritchard joins us with today's sporting news. Faster My,
Lewis. We'll start with cycling, and Manxman Matthew Bostock has secured another win to continue his strong form on this year's British Cycling National Circuit Series. The Ribble Rebellion rider took top spot in the 6th stage of the competition at Colne last night during a bunch sprint in which he edged out series leader Rob Scott, who finished second. The final podium place in third went to Jacob Scott. It's the third time Bostock has taken victory in the series so far. He's currently second in the open standings, heading into the final round this Friday at the Beverley Grand Prix. Well, in motorsport, and after positive results in recent years, Greenall Racing has confirmed it'll return to the Manx Grand Prix for 2024 next month. The team will have an unchanged trio of riders taking on the Classic Superbike race in Rob Hodson, Brian McCormack and Derek Shields. During the last 2 meetings on the Snaefell Mountain course, the crew secured the top 2 places in the Classic Superbike contest in 2022, with Hodson taking victory and then teammate Nathan Harrison coming in second. Last year was also a strong showing as all their competitors finished in the top 10. Hodson would bag another podium spot in third, with McCormack not far behind in fourth and Shields in eighth. And finally, an Isle of Man Jiu-Jitsu club has bagged 5 medals during recent international competition held in the UK. Summit Grappling Academy, formerly known as Gracie Barra, claimed 3 silver and 2 bronze as it fielded 7 competitors at the Elite BJJ Events Junior World Championships 2024 in Wolverhampton from the 13th to the 14th of July. Summit Grappling Academy is describing the team's effort as an impressive display, adding they're now preparing for the IBJJF Kids European Championships in Portugal in October.
Gromyed, Rob Pritchard, thank you very much. That's it from Update for this evening. As always, you can listen back via the podcast at manxradio.com. Up next, it's Wednesday, so that means Howard Kane is back with Spotlight before Greatest Hits at 6 o'clock with Dave Moore. Thank you for listening. I'll be back at the same time tomorrow.